I don't have anything specific about video games to tell you guys today. So today I'm going to switch the mojo up and talk about what goes into creating not only video games, but every form of creative media. This is something that's both the hardest part and the most rewarding part of creating music or video games or movies or even these scripts for YouTube videos that I'm doing right now. And that is the creative process and the subsequent creative struggle. It's a constant struggle for anyone trying to make something that they don't see every day. I want to give you guys an example of this, and that example is Valve and Half-Life. For those of you who don't know what Half-Life is, and honestly I don't know how you don't at this point, Half-Life was a sci-fi shooter released in 1998 with elements of horror that revolutionized the game genre at the time. The way it did this was Half-Life really put an emphasis on the story part of the game, creating a gripping story about Gordon Freeman's escape from the Black Mesa facility after it was overrun by aliens. I would say that Half-Life is now remarked as one of the greatest and most influential games of our time because of their focus on narrative-driven scripted scenes, rather than cutscenes like what most games were doing at the time. Using these scripted scenes instead of cutscenes, the player really felt like they were Gordon Freeman playing the game because all of the characters would talk to you in person instead of Gordon Freeman in a cutscene. The praise for this concept was reflected by how highly acclaimed this game was and still is, and the result of the game you can see down the road in almost every single shooter on the market today. Halo, Call of Duty, Destiny, even games like Assassin's Creed and Grand Theft Auto borrow things that can be traced back to Half-Life. But most importantly, relating to the concept of this video, you have to remember that Half-Life was not created as this big company game. It was created by Valve, which wasn't a big company at all in 1998. It was founded by two people in 1996 who decided that they weren't content with just working on Microsoft game ports for their whole career. And that decision to have the ambition and take their chips and put it all into this game that ended up being Half-Life reflects on how big Valve has been over the years. You know, it's grown into the largest PC game distributor, and it's not even close of the 21st century. Now, how does this little history lesson have to do with the creative process? Well, it shows that creativity stems from stepping outside of your comfort zone. If Gabe Newell and Mike Harrington had never decided that they weren't satisfied with working for Microsoft OS for their whole lives, Valve would have never been founded. As a game, Half-Life wouldn't have been made, or at least not made in the same way, and the concepts that drew from Valve's smash hit wouldn't have come at the time. Surely in time there may have been another company to come along and do what Valve did in making that game, but that same company is in that creative process. One of the big stems from creativity in a whole is the feeling that there could be something better over the hill. And that's something that you as a person that has goals and aspirations to be somewhere should always strive for. I'm not saying you should always look to improve everything in your life, because there are definitely areas that if you feel good about where they are, you don't need to change anything. I'm just talking about times when you're sitting in your class daydreaming about what it would be like to have it all figured out. Because I'll tell you that more often than not, people don't get to become the top of that food chain that they dream about by following the corporate ladder to a T. Modern working class America has a knack for grinding the man or woman down until you're just complacent. Whether it be working your way up the corporate ladder, or drowning in student loan debt with a career that doesn't cut it, or even that you just don't like your job but you have to do it to provide for yourself or others. If you always have this nagging thought in the back of your head like, I could be doing better than what I'm doing right now, that is where your creative process starts. And this isn't something that happens with video game creators or small aspiring YouTubers. It's something that happens with almost every single celebrity with no initial ties to the industry. For example, music artists. A couple people that come to mind are old SoundCloud rappers. X, Ski Mask, Juice WRLD, you name it. These guys had no end to the world of rap as far as the global stage goes. XXXTentacion, who's probably the most prominent SoundCloud rapper ever, gained a huge audience by his persistent striving to release music of his own sound. Now, you may not personally like his music, but you can't deny that X had a unique sound in all of his tracks, and his creativity and willingness to release music in untreaded territory paved a way for all aspiring SoundCloud rap one way or another. He's a perfect example of creativity leading you out of bad places, as referenced to in his music and his overarching messages of wanting to help people out who are currently struggling in battles with mental health. There are plenty of other people doing the same thing to come out of nowhere to the front stages, and all of these people have at least one thing in common, and that is the drive to start. If I could talk to you personally and tell you the most important thing I've learned in my life a little over 20 years ago until now, it's that you can't win the game if you do not play. Personally, I don't think that I really had this mentality up until recently. I always thought that if you just put your head down and do your work and do well in school, then everything will just fall in place for you. I never really hit that part of growing where you decide to actively search to be better and find better things until I was in my late teenage years. I had all these dreams of being a baseball player, or making music, or being a YouTuber, or even working towards being some sort of scholar, which is what I'm doing right now, but I really lacked the drive to start finding my own way, to see what fits in the puzzle and what I need to change to make it fit. There are even times now in my studies, or even as I'm writing this script and subsequently reading it to you, that it feels like I have a little devil on my shoulder telling me that I should not be here, that I should go back to my old job, or that I should give up on school and just work and save money up. But that kind of anxiety is something that's very normal among almost everybody and extremely manageable. You need only to recognize it. Whenever you step outside of your comfort zone to make something creative or do something, you will always have that little voice in your head telling you, I can't. Even now, as I'm going over this script again, I wonder if anyone will actually relate to this issue, but part of growing up is realizing that just because you're unsure of something doesn't make it a risk not worth taking. As Taylor Swift once said, fearless is having fears but jumping anyway. It's normal for you to not feel like you can do it because you haven't done it, so maybe it's time for you to stop thinking about doing it and just do it. I spent so much time in my early years believing that I couldn't make it work that I never tried in the first place, but now here I am trying to make it work. And even though it is a small number in the grand scheme of things, when I see something like 400 views on my most recent video, it tells me that I can do something like this. And if this whole video to this point has meant nothing to you, well, shit man, I guess it just meant something to me.